I've been betrayed, but there's no help for me.
Brannon, what's going on, man?
Not much. Just getting ready to just hit it hard this year.
I know everyone starts the new year with like all the new, what's kind of cool, Brannon, this year is like my whole family kind of seemed to be in this mode where we almost went into dormancy coming into Christmas. And then as a collective energy, as a family, we kind of all sat down the last couple of days and we're like, hey, what are some of the changes we want to make, or the new commitments, or the new growth, and there was like this cool energy where like everyone was kind of in the same page, where we've had our long winter's nap and now we're ready to kind of like get back to doing some things that are going to improve our lives together.
Yeah, I love it. So what are some of the things?
One of my daughters said that she wanted to understand certain books of scripture differently than maybe she has yet. So we're gonna
I like it.
We're gonna do a study together on a regular basis, and probably include anyone who wants to join us, any other siblings, or maybe like her boyfriend wanted to join some of them. Currently, this is actually, we should do a whole episode on this, but I got a challenge issued by one of the guys that I work with, and he gave me this packet that had top secret written in Finnish on it, with a challenge to read a book about the Finnish army fighting the Russians back in like 1939. And then a challenge to actually physically train for an extended cross-country ski while carrying my .22 rifle, shooting targets along the way, in honor of like almost like training, like being in the Finnish army. So this morning I was
so random. It was so random.
So random. But I woke up this morning, it was pouring rain, and I got up and I did my 3-mile hike, and then I came home and jumped on the exercise bike and did my squats and did my push-ups. And I'm at least one day into actually upholding my end of the challenge right now. So
excellent.
My daughters were my daughters were laughing at me, but they're like, "That's also kind of cool, Dad."
That's way cool. I didn't expect you to say now you're a member of the Finnish army.
No, I'm not claiming that at all, but it's like kind of in honor of that story. It's a story of how they basically held back it's basically the Finnish version of the American Revolution, where they held back a much stronger, foe than,
right.
And how they did that, and kind of the essence of their toughness, basically.
Yeah, I love it.
So that's something I'm working on, and my daughters are supporting me in that. And
well, you're going to need a little bit of snow to practice cross-country skiing. So.
I know, that's the one problem.
Pray for snow.
In Utah, I just said it was raining all morning, and that never happens this time of year. So probably would have had like 2 or 3 feet of snow this week, but it was all rain. So
I know.
Anyway.
Well, cool. Sounds like good stuff.
Yeah. It's exciting time of year to kind of get back into those things.
Yeah. Well, should we dive into this topic here?
Yeah, this is a question that was submitted to you, Brannon, right? And just before we jump into that, if any of you are listening here and you have a question, go to therapybrothers.org and you can sign up to become a caller on the show, which is even better. Or you can just hit ask a question. There's a button there to ask a question. You can click that, type a question, and on days like today, we'll sometimes go to that bank and we'll pull out a question and have that be the topic of the discussion for the episode.
Yeah, we would love to get your questions. We would love to have you on as guests as well. So, okay, Tyler. So I'm just going to read the first part of this and then get your take on it and just pull some things out of it. So it says, I am a betrayed husband, and there's a massive problem trying to find help for the opposite dynamics. The general perception is if a husband cheats, then the wife is the victim. But if a wife cheats, then the husband must have been abusive or something like that. However, this is far from the truth. My wife was dishonest for almost our 22 years of marriage, manipulative, and gaslighted me of thinking I was not doing enough. So that's the first part of it. Any thoughts?
Yeah, number one, thanks for reaching out. It's funny. Obviously, just even on our own podcast, there's a glaring hole in treatment for this, for husbands who have been betrayed versus wives who've been betrayed. I think that hole is closing, and I think we're going to be able to give some help here today. But But it makes sense that he's feeling that way.
Tyler, we've been part of the issue. And the reason I say that is we speak in terms, and we've tried really hard to shift to talk about partners and not put a gender on things. But like our natural tendency is to give examples and talk about things where the husband is the cheater, the husband is the betrayer, the wife is the betrayed. And the truth is that it happens both ways all the time. And that men experience betrayal trauma, and not many people talk about men experiencing betrayal trauma. And the reason why, Tyler, the reason why we have been a part of this is because it's what's interesting is if a woman gets cheated on and there's betrayal trauma, they're more likely to seek help and therapy. And so most of our clients or clientele have been when a man has been the cheater or the betrayer and the woman has been the betrayed. And so that's the world that we live in, but we're not unaware that what he's saying here in this question isn't true, right?
Yeah, actually, I've wondered about this, Brannon, and maybe you have your own take on this. We know that it's not even split between men cheating and women cheating, but it's much higher than the world would think in terms of the split. So,
Yes.
So there is actually a lot of men who get cheated on, but they don't get talked about as much. And I think here's my thoughts on it, Brannon. One is exactly what you said and what he just said in his question that we haven't even gotten fully through the question yet, but there's almost like a stigma, that's still there. I think it's changing and I think it's getting better, but there's a stigma that if you get cheated on and you're a man, that is somehow an indictment of you and your manliness. And the last thing you're going to want to do is go somewhere and admit your lack of manliness by looking for help from someone.
But I don't fully understand it, Tyler, because I think there's that stigma the other way around, where if I'm a woman and I get cheated on, sometimes it's easy to just be like, my husband's a jerk who did that to me. But there's also that belief of like,
it's a shameful belief, like,
he did that because I'm not enough.
I'm not enough. I don't measure
up. He went and sought
Right.
something else out and yet those people, a lot of those women will still seek help. They'll still seek treatment. And so, but
I guess what I'm getting at, Brannon,
there's an added stigma. I'm not like arguing.
It's not the belief about not being good enough that's the issue. I think the stigma is more around the asking for help portion of it.
Yeah, I'm weak.
Like, I mean, you think about this, there's been like in New Zealand, there was a big push just recently where they did a whole bunch of advertisements and videos about men and suicide. And all the videos were about all these men who are carrying these burdens in their lives, but they're not talking to anybody because they don't talk to anybody. And I think they're trying to break that stigma over there by saying, hey, join a brotherhood, like reach out to somebody, talk to somebody, like, because all these men are just in their own heads, like not reaching out for help. So Tyler, I think that's part of it.
Is it the case where like, because we run a lot of men's groups, betrayers, right? Or men struggling with addiction. Are they there because are most of them there because they're compelled to be? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I would say not, sometimes that's the case.
I just wonder, like, why is this dynamic in place? Like, why? Because I agree that men struggle to reach out for help. And yet we have a lot of men's groups, but those men's groups get formed because in relationship, they're like, hey, we got to fix something. And they're almost, I'm not saying the men I work with don't feel like they're compelled to be there. In fact, many men that I work with aren't. But some are.
No, you're right. You're right. We just got a comment that came through here and this is actually awesome because Brannon and I right now, at least this portion of the episode, we're speculating. We don't have these answers. But one came through. It says, in my youth, the church contributed to the blame cycle. If the man cheated, then his wife wasn't sexual enough. We mostly didn't talk about the wife cheating. Yeah, I think there's something to that. Like, and it's like, I think that's a cultural thing too. It's again changing, but it doesn't get talked about the same way.
That's an interesting comment. If the man cheated, it's because the wife wasn't sexual enough. So that's interesting, because it's almost the opposite of what the question was saying, is, blaming the betrayed for the betrayer's behavior.
That's how this person who submitted the question was feeling like.
I think it goes both ways. It's just, I guess where I'm kind of just getting to, it goes both ways of like the blame thing is stupid. If somebody cheats, they choose to go cheat. Now I understand there's a lot of
reasons
dynamics and reasons behind the reason why, but if a man cheats or a woman cheats, they cheated, right? And
I think that's it, Brannon, is that in a lot of ways on either side of this, the principles are going to be similar. Even if there's maybe some nuances to it being a man versus a woman who's done the cheating. But the first one you're talking about is whoever did the cheating is accountable for the cheating.
Right. But I'm just, and with you, Tyler, I'm just trying to kind of wonder out loud a little bit of like, I do wonder why the dynamic is so, the man's is it the pornography thing where more men view pornography than women? It's just reality. It's the way that men and women are built. Not to say that women don't struggle with pornography too, but more men do.
Yeah. Well, and it's a different kind of consumption generally too between men and women, where men are more driven towards sort of the physical, visual stuff a bit more, and women are more drawn towards like the literature and other kinds of.
You walk down the beach in Hawaii, and like every woman has like a court of thorns and roses that they're reading. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, yeah. But honestly, that is one of the nuanced differences about it. And maybe that's it too, is that there's been so much.
But what husband is like, hey, let's go to treatment because you're reading that novel? And I'm not trying to minimize pornography use as like something that isn't painful and hard, but like the reality is if a woman is fantasizing and lusting and disconnecting through literature like that, or through Hallmark movies, they're not seeking treatment for it, right? Like,
no.
I'm just like exploring this. I don't know the answers, Tyler. Because a lot of our clients end up in treatment because of the compulsive pornography use.
Yeah.
And with that compulsive pornography use, it leads to all kinds of relational issues that then leads to seeking therapy.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that women don't lust, and it doesn't mean that women don't disconnect too, in their own way. Is this like a cultural thing? I don't know, Tyler. I like trying to figure it out with you while we're recording.
Yeah, me too. We're basically trying to figure this out as we go. It hopefully at least is stirring up some things for people to think about.
I mean, Tyler, would you like to run a betrayed men's group?
Oh, I love that.
I would love that.
Yeah.
And I would love to run a women's group where they're struggling with compulsive behaviors and disconnecting, and we're working on that for women. But we've never started those groups because we never get enough people to act. Like this guy right here, I would love to have him in a group with other betrayed men and have them feel validated and seen and process things and all those things. I would love to give him what he wants.
Yeah. But I think maybe that's part of the problem, Brannon, is I've run into the same thing with my own practice, is that I have a caseload of whatever between groups and individuals. I see maybe 100 people a week. At any given time, the presenting problem, I've never had enough women who are presenting as, hey, I've got an addiction to pornography or compulsive behavior, or I've been cheating. I always have like 2 or 3 or 4 on my caseload, and vice versa with the men who are always coming in and saying like, hey, I just got cheated on. I don't know what to do with all of this. And so in terms for a group to be viable, you need, a good group is 8 to 14 people is prime for that.
Right.
And
Right.
I've never had that amount of clientele, maybe because it's just been the nature of my practice, or so I think that's maybe part of the weakness inside of the treatment part of this too. Is the best work for this, I believe, is group work, besides the experiential stuff we do with the retreats and stuff. But the best treatment is group work, and we've never quite fully had enough of a clientele to start that group.
Tyler, I would say over my 15 years of doing this, I have tried to start a women's addiction group probably 4 or 5 times. It has never been, I have never been able to get enough people to want to participate to actually do that treatment. So it's like, and so there's that side of things too. I think sometimes there's definitely a stigma, Tyler, for women struggling with addiction or compulsive behaviors who don't want to like there's a lot of shame there, and so they don't want to be seen, and yet there's so many women struggling, so there's that side of it too, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's been cool, and I think this is kind of where a little bit of where like the healing journey has been going. If you look at even like reclaimyourheart.org, it's been pretty cool. Some of those conversations that people get on and share, they're getting feedback from both the betrayed and the betrayer of both sexes. When they type in like, hey, I'm running into this, what do I understand? And you know how powerful it is to have, say, like a betrayed man get on and have somebody who's like a woman who's done the betraying say, hey, I see you, and here's like like something to think about, or like there's been some real power there. Or here's another one, Brannon, that I've noticed in my own practice. I don't know if you've run into this or not, but there's been a few occasions, several actually now, where maybe I'm running a women's group, and finally, after this woman's been coming for her own betrayal for a while, she finally comes and says, hey guys, like, I know this isn't the place for it, but I need to be real with you, and I have my own problems with pornography, and this is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm working on. And without fail, every time something like that has happened inside of one of my groups, it actually adds deeper richness and connection and support and understanding. And actually that person who is now offering their side of that story to this group becomes a real gift. And they also receive a lot of support back.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that we kind of develop the healing journey is, if you look at the healing journey, in fact, almost all of the curriculum for the beginning part of the healing journey is done by both sides anyway. Because the healing process isn't about having been the betrayed or the betrayer per se. It's about the reclamation of your life and your heart and your soul from the trauma and the shame that you've been experiencing.
Not to say that there's not an accountability and consequences for betraying, right?
No, there's some nuances there for sure.
Right. And but yet the work eventually becomes the same. It's healing the deeper roots to the issues, whether you're the betrayed or the betrayer. I'm just thinking, Tyler, something you just said, like, how many times has it been a couple comes in because he has a porn addiction, he's masturbating and looking at porn every so often, and I'll work with them for like months, and then the wife, like, once I build enough rapport, and I got to build rapport, and I don't know, I just know that something else is not.
You're like hitting a wall. There's something like
off.
Like maybe she's not setting boundaries the way you think she would or could or whatever, and then she finally comes in and says, "Hey, by the way, I have my own problems with pornography."
Yeah, and so it's like we've been so focused here on him and his issue. But now, like, she needed enough safety, and a lot of times when she discloses to me, it's this huge kind of relief and unburdening of shame, but also this really vulnerable thing. And then the dynamics in the relationship are different. The betrayal's a little bit different. Even it's not just the same. As like a man acting out and just acting out with lust or another person or pornography, and the way his wife responds versus the way the husband responds, it's oftentimes different. I was working with a couple once years ago, and he had a pornography problem. They were very religious. His pornography problem really wasn't extreme. But he wanted to fix it. He didn't want to ever act out. And while we were working on that, she was having a full-fledged affair, like full-on affair. And he knew about her affair. And she knew about her affair, but I didn't. And so like, I felt a little like, WTF?
Like gaslit almost as a therapist, like that, you don't, that doesn't seem important to bring into the therapy office.
Well, and it's curious too, of like, okay, we're talking about like how bad his porn use is. And I'm not saying that it's not a problem, but like we're focusing on that as the thing that's destroying the relationship. And it comes back to this guy's question of, I think what they were thinking was she was acting out because he was breaking the trust with the pornography. So that was his fault. So he needed to stop that. So then she could stop doing what she was doing.
Yeah.
But do you see how messed up all this is?
Yeah. It never works that way.
I mean,
No.
Each individual needs to look at themselves and say, okay, how do I become a person who can be trustworthy and create love and intimacy in a relationship? And if we're focused just on this one thing here, and that's it, and yet I got these secrets in the background or all this stuff going on, and I'm not dealing with that, then you're paying money to a therapist who's beating their head against a wall trying to help you. Right?
Yeah.
So but in this story, Tyler, I think you can see some of the issues that go on, of like the shame and the stigma and how hard it is to open up. Yeah, I wish this were different, and I'm glad we're talking about it right now, Tyler. I don't know if we have the answers to it.
Yeah, I would say like there's a few things that I think we try to do to help with those answers, but also admittedly, there is a gaping hole when it comes to this arena in both of the ways you just described, that if somebody could crack that code, they could do a lot of good in the world and provide a lot of help there. I do think that there's some help that does come. And for the sake of time, I'd love for you to finish the question, and let's at least speak to his question too.
Yeah, let's see.
Try to provide some help there.
My discovery day was November. After 6 months of trick or truce, my new reality started to form. I still find it hard to get help. Videos and materials to help a husband who cares about his kids navigate this painful and isolating experience. Do you have sources to share, or would you consider helping males through infidelity and mentally abusive relationships? So that's the finish of his question.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've kind of talked about it. Like, I hate to say that we don't have great resources, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure there are a ton of them out there, but I don't think it's hopeless either,
Not at all.
And I would say that even though we've never had like a full amount for a full group to do that work, you and I, Brannon, have both had couples in reverse order to what we typically talk about a ton.
I'll tell you this, Tyler, this guy would fit right in. And I know he might cringe at this if he hears this, but he would fit right into my men's group that I run on Thursdays, because we're far into the healing journey. Our focus is not on them as sex addicts. We're doing trauma work. They're strengthening their masculinity. They're learning healthy boundaries. They're trusting themselves more. They're connecting to God more. Like there's this just awesome stuff going on that this guy who didn't betray his wife would benefit from, and benefit to the point where he would know how to navigate his relationship with his wife better because he's doing that work. Coming back to what you were saying earlier.
Yeah. I think actually, Brannon, I would take it a step further, that in that group that you run, or in any of the men's groups that I run too, this is, I as I'm thinking about it right now, if he were to join a men's group, most of the men in there would be on the side of having done the betraying. And in every one of my men's groups, there's at least one, if not multiple, men who have also been cheated on.
Been betrayed. Yes.
And so, but the work would still be there. So there would still be support. There'd still be perspective. There'd still be understanding. There'd still be empathy. I do think that getting into some other kinds of support and help, whether that's like a men's, like a masculinity group, would still scratch part of that itch, or like even the betrayal side of things, you would actually learn a ton, and it would accelerate your process a ton to be in a men's group like that. And then to me, the biggest factor is the work that you do in something like the healing journey or the trauma work. So yes, the question was, would you consider working with a betrayed spouse? I work with betrayed spouses all the time, men and women. We do all the trauma types of treatments, EMDR, ART, IFS. Those are going to be effective for you no matter what.
The hard part, like him working with one of us individually, I think would be awesome. The hard part is finding him a specific group where he is just trying to focus on his betrayal trauma. We don't have that, but coming back to what you were saying, Tyler, we have resources like crazy that would be beneficial and helpful. Something you said earlier, I want to highlight, because I think it is unique, and I think it's also triggering and maybe hard to understand how it works. But over at reclaimyourheart.org, it's been awesome to watch betrayers and the betrayed actually help each other and give advice and give like another perspective in a real safe environment. And I think like just some community like that can help, whether you're a man or a woman. And you can see some of the underlying principles of recovery. You can talk about your pain. You can get some validation. So we might not have a specific group for you, but we have a community that could help you, along with the deep trauma work that would be helpful for you, and along with some individual work as well. So that there are things that are out there for you.
Yeah, and I would say it might just need to be pieced together a little differently than traditionally otherwise. And I say this on almost every episode, but I come back to the principles of, I need support, I need structure, I need education, I need grounding, and then once I've got those things in place, and then I need to go into like my own healing process, which is the shame and the trauma work. And I can piece that together Brannon and I have certain methods that we use and certain programs that we do, but principally speaking, if you piece together those principles, that's going to lead you to a path of healing. And there's lots of ways to do that. There's 100 different ways to piece that together.
Tyler, when I think about emotional affairs, as well as full-fledged affairs, and I think about like all of the men in my life, my friends, and just honestly, I would say maybe 20% of them have experienced some form of betrayal. Now you think 20%, that's not that much. That's a lot. Like of the men in my life, if that's across the board, 20% of men get betrayed in some way, there's millions of men out there who have been betrayed. There's millions of men out there suffering in silence and trying to battle through those deep, dark feelings of loneliness and grief and pain and complex betrayal trauma, all alone. And that's too bad. I let's crack this code, Tyler. Let's talk more about this. I just don't know exactly where to start with it, other than offer what we have and to piece it together. And I'm just glad this topic was brought up. So,
Amen. I'll just kind of corroborate what you just said, Brandon. I just looked up the statistics for infidelity. 20 to 25% of married couples experience cheating. And then it said, here's another one that says 34% of men and 46% of women report a spouse or partner cheating on them, although this might undercount known infidelities.
but even still, that number's pretty high on both sides.
And it says it's climbing. As of right now, the numbers are climbing for women to be cheating.
For women to be cheating. Yeah.
So
I just want to say to him, like, thank you for reaching out. Thank you for asking this question. And thank you for your vulnerability. I love a man who's willing to seek help and try to get support. And so we need more of him, right?
Yeah. And I would just say to you, we may not have the mainstreamed product in place, and very few places do, I think, right now, but there is hope here. I've seen it. I've experienced it with other men who have been in similar situations. There is a way through this. There's a way to healing, self-confidence, stepping back into your full masculinity, whether you stay with your relationship or not. There's hope here.
Yeah.
So,
all right, you guys. Well, thank you for listening. And if you do have questions, where do they go, Tyler?
Go to therapybrothers.org and submit a question or sign up to become a caller on the show.
Yeah. You don't have to be a caller to get your questions answered. So we love your questions. We would love for you to be a caller too. But until next time, keep on keeping on.